My name is Adam, and I've been flying drones for work for over 10 years. I built my first giant hexacopter in 2013, and I've been hooked ever since. So I get asked all of the time, what's the difference in this drone and this drone, and what drone should I buy? So I'm just gonna go through that because I've had quite a few people ask for a longer video explanation. Today, I'm really gonna focus on indoor FPV drones. I'm gonna talk about traditional FPV drones like most of us are used to, and then the newcomers like the DJI Avatas. So I made notes, so hopefully I don't go too far off track, but I'm gonna start just with what's the difference in an indoor drone and an outdoor drone. And yes, you can fly them in the other environment, right? But it's more about what they're made for, what they're best at. DJI makes the Mavic, they make the Mavic 1, 2, 3, the Air, the Mini, and then they make giant drones for agriculture and search and rescue and all kinds of cool things. But these are what I consider outdoor drones. Can you fly them inside? Kind of, but they're not made for it and they're not best for that. So don't come at me and say you can fly it inside, because you can, yes. But indoor drones typically have prop guards around the props so you don't smash or cut up anything. These are indoor drones. This is not an indoor drone. This is an outdoor drone. But when I'm saying indoor and outdoor, typically indoor, Cinewhoop, they're smaller, they have prop guards, and they're just made for inside, where the Mavic series are typically, generally made for outside. So that's that. But I want to go into the differences between the Avata, the DJI Avata, which everyone's like, oh man, that's really cool, and it is. And then our more traditional FPV drones, because they kind of look similar, but they're also very different. The first thing I want to talk about is the price. So this Avata, the Avata 2, I have the Avata 1 somewhere else. They're about $1,000. The batteries are expensive. Basically everything about them is more expensive. If you crash it, it's more expensive. If you crash this, a motor is like $12. You can replace this whole frame for $25. These drones that are custom built are significantly cheaper. The goggles and the remote for this drone cost more than the drone. So once you have the goggles and the remote, then you're basically set. You can just add more drones for basically nothing and then fix them for practically nothing as well. The cool thing is DJI makes FPV drone equipment and supplies. So this drone, this drone, this drone, they all have DJI, they're called air units inside of them. And what that means is that this camera that is on these drones is the same exact camera that's on the Avata series. So a lot of the DJI features still work even in these custom built drones. The air units themselves, the brains of the computer with the tiny little camera, that's what costs the most. Everything else is pretty much cheap, I would say. So batteries, the Avata, more expensive batteries, but very significantly longer flight times. So you can fly like, I don't even remember, 20 or 30 minutes with the Avata, where these are like 5 minutes. But these batteries are significantly cheaper, and they work with all kinds of other drones. Like this drone, this one's probably too small, but I probably have 10 drones that take the same exact battery. The batteries are way cheaper. They're easier to charge. They're cheaper to charge. So batteries are, I like my custom built drones because they all take the same battery and they're just cheaper. Where the flight times on these are longer, however, the batteries are more expensive. You have to have a specific charger if you're not charging in the drone and all of that. I mentioned flight time, video quality. DJI has great video quality. But like I mentioned, the same exact camera that this has is right here on my drone. So very similar video quality, if not identical, but I also have the added benefit of being able to fly a GoPro or other action camera, an Instago camera. I've flown a 360 camera on these before, so I like the ability to fly different kinds of cameras on these. The quality, like I said, is the same, about the same, but you have added benefit of extra camera. Durability, repairability, we touched on that. These, I mean, this is held together with like putty and duct tape, and it's fine. Maneuverability, that's a huge, huge difference, and I'm going to talk about in a second. But first I want to talk about the ease of use. If you've ever flown a Mavic series, you know they're super easy to fly. You let go of the controllers and they just hover. Like you can put it in the air, set the controller down, go get a drink and come back, it's in the same spot. If your battery gets low, it will return and land itself. If you lose connection, it will return, it will land itself. And a lot of that is still true with the Avata series. So I would say the Avata is way easier to fly. It has a lot of the same features, but not quite as many as the Mavic. If you let go of the controller, it will stay still. So if you're flying inside and you freak out, you just let go and the drone will freeze. And I'll show you that in a minute. And then also, if it loses connection or the battery gets low, it will fly back home. Unlike these. So these, you can put a GPS on and you can have it return to launch and lower itself down. It's just not as reliable or smart as the DJI series. And it's a little bit more weight and uses a little bit more battery, a little bit more expensive. So a lot of people don't even put GPS on these drones. You're supposed to now with remote ID, but a lot of people just don't. I actually have a GPS right here. I have remote ID here. So not all of the DJI drones have remote ID. The newer ones do. Older DJI drones do not. You are supposed to have remote ID to fly drones. The cool thing is with this is these are super cheap. I can get these and put this tiny little thing on all of my drones, and now I'm compliant with the FAA and I make them happy. So ease of use, ease of flying, safety. These are not easy to fly. I trained on a simulator and in the park for 3 months before I tried to fly these through a house. Significantly harder to fly. There's no obstacle avoidance, there's no sensors, there's nothing on this except a camera, and you're telling it where to fly. So if you let go of the controls, it's just gonna drift. It's gonna go whatever direction the wind is blowing. It's gonna move. If you let go of the controller, you will crash in 2 seconds probably. So significantly harder to fly. I can't stress that enough. Like, such a learning curve on these. However, once you figure it out, they allow for so much more versatility, for so much better like maneuverability. And I'm going to really focus on that because what I use these for is indoor drone tours. I have done hundreds of indoor drone tours, and I've lied. I've tried the Avata like 2 or 3 times. I don't like it. I'll show you that. I'll show you why. But I've used these. I've used a couple different versions of these, but all my indoor drone tours are done with this. And we've made tens of, or not hundreds of thousands of dollars on indoor drone tours using these drones. So range is, it's kind of weird as far as how far you can fly and the penetration through walls and objects. Because like I mentioned, DJI makes the guts, the air unit of this. However, I'm not as confident because if I lose signal, this drone is programmed to just fall out of the sky. You can program it to use the GPS and return to home, but that's not going to work inside. I don't want it to fly into the ceiling trying to come back to where I launched it or fly into a wall if I lose signal. So I feel more confident flying the Avata far away. However, if I lose signal with this inside, it's not going to return. It's going to smash a wall because how they work is they fly up and then they fly straight to where you launched. So if you launched from the front of the house and now you're inside, it's just going to straight line into a wall. So if you're inside, the return to launch isn't super helpful, return to home, but I do feel a little bit better flying the Avata for some reason because, I don't know, I think that the antennas and the remotes are just perfectly optimized where this, the antenna is right here. This one, the antenna is here. So the DJI drones are just perfectly optimized. That's why they have longer flight times, better range, things like that, because all the equipment is standard, where all of this equipment is not standard. I think that's the biggest things I wanted to talk about. I did quickly want to mention the difference in analog and digital FPV drones. Analog's been around forever. The video quality is not as good, but they are cheaper and you can make them smaller. This is an analog drone. This thing is just infinitely smaller and lighter and less expensive than the digital drones, but nobody really uses analog drones professionally anymore. Someone's going to say, yes, I do. And you're right. Fine, you do. But most of the time, people use the digital DJI equipment, whether they custom build it or it's pre-built. So let's go into the maneuverability differences. And the Avata is meant to use with the remote or with the motion controller. Yes, you can use it, it's over there, with a normal FPV controller, but it takes away a lot of the ease of use. If you have never flown a drone before and you use the Avata with the normal controller, I call it the normal controller, the FPV controller, then you're gonna crash, because as soon as you use this instead of this, it takes away all of the safety, the self-leveling, all of that, and you're just gonna crash. So I use this DJI remote for these drones because DJI makes the brains of these, because it just allows for better maneuverability. The Avata meant to use with this, and it works great with this. My kid can fly with this, my wife can fly with this. It's so easy to fly. It's like driving a school bus inside. Like, it's slow, it's smooth, but you've got to make big wide turns. There's nothing quick. I'll just have to show you. All right, so I'm going to record with the goggles as well as the drone so we can compare footage, and you can also see what I see. So we're gonna start with the Avata. Turn everything on just like a normal DJI drone. And, oh geez, my kid flew this yesterday. Way too tight. I do like these goggles, but you can use these goggles for my custom built drones as well. All right, so here we are. So the top right there, that is what I'm seeing with the goggles, and the bottom is the finished footage. So I'm watching this, so that's why I'm not looking at you. You might think, hey, the footage looks different. Well, it does, and that's because the finished footage, it corrects for the lens distortion, and it also levels the horizon, which means that it's more zoomed in because you have to crop in order to level the horizon because you are rotating the image and punching in and out. So as you see, when I'm flying, I'm basically always having to fly straight forward. I can't really fly side to side with that motion controller, and stairs are also incredibly difficult. So you can kind of make it, you can program the joystick to increase and decrease your elevation. It's just not super easy. So you can tell I'm struggling a little bit to make sure I don't hit anything because I can't go up and down and side to side easy. I basically always have to be moving forward in order to adjust. So again, I'm facing the wall longer than I want to. I can't do things that are a little bit more risky because I don't feel like I have as much control. So downstairs, I'm pressing the joystick. I'm also looking down. It's just not, it's not easy. If I tried that move a couple of times, I could definitely make it look better. It's just not easy. So you can see again, as it levels the horizon, it crops the image in. So it's not quite as wide as you see in the goggles, but you can see the goggle view is pretty good. It gets a little choppy when I get around to the back of the house, but overall the image transmission has been great, nothing cut out. So I'm going to show you the FPV footage next from my custom built drone, and then we'll compare the two. So I got all set with this drone. I am charging, or I'm running the GoPro with my drone battery, which is kind of cool. You can use the same goggles that I really like for the Avata. All I have to do is a firmware update and I can use it for this. I just haven't done that yet. Using this controller, which comes with the Avata 1 or the DJI FPV drone. So it is cool because all of this kind of can work together. You don't have to spend more money on it. So let's see what we got. FPV drone, you'll notice that the goggle view is very similar. It has a lot of the same things, and that's because it's made by DJI. The goggles obviously at the bottom. You will see, I can see a little bit of my drone on the left, which is annoying, but I can probably just tilt that a little bit. And then the top view is the GoPro, because remember I have a GoPro mounted on. So like this turn here, I'm able to spin around without moving forward. And then in the kitchen here, I'm able to rotate a lot better and show the kitchen rather than flying straight towards the wall. So I'm able to turn to the side, like strafe to the side when I make turns, rather than having to go forward and turn. Stairs are also easier. That was got a little crazy. I could have done another pass if I wanted to. That wasn't as smooth as I'd like. So in here, you notice, like I can start turning here and fly backwards a little bit. And I'm also able to do a little bit more risky stuff. I just feel like I have more control with the FPV drone rather than the Avata, and I can just drop my altitude here. I don't have to fly forward and fall at the same time. So I also fly faster, and I can slow it down with 60 frames per second. I can slow it down. And then as GoPros advance, I can just switch out the GoPro rather than replacing the whole drone. Flying through the window, no problem. I feel like I have more control with my FPV drone. And the transmission did great. It did just as good as the Avata, in my opinion, nothing cut out. And when I get back to the front, I do show off a little bit more just because I love this drone so much. I feel like I have so much control. I feel like I can put it wherever I need it. I can hit gaps. I can hit obstacles, like I can hit objects, and it doesn't freak out. So I'm gonna fly through this tree. There's a lot more leaves than I remembered, so I think I actually hit some stuff. Yep, I hit that branch, but I'm good. So DJI drone, FPV drone, now we're gonna compare them. We have my custom built GoPro FPV drone on the top, and the Avata is on the bottom. So I flew at different paces, at different speeds, so it's hard to compare apples to apples. I typically fly the FPV drone a little bit faster just because I feel like I have more control over it. This turn right here, it just shows you the difference of the FPV drone. Like I can turn sideways, I can rotate, I don't have to fly forward. And even here, you see the Avata, I'm facing the wall a lot more rather than rotating around the room, kind of on like a center point with the drone. And then the stairs are obviously way better with the FPV drone. I don't get hung up as much. So we're gonna change pacing a little bit. All right, I adjusted the pacing so that we're kind of on track. You will notice that the Avata, the image is way more cropped in. The GoPro is just wider. Also, again, I can fly with more control and in tighter spaces with the FPV drone. Back down the stairs is just a struggle for the Avata. The FPV drone, I can just drop the altitude and fall right down. So you can see that there's just less hang up, there's less downtime with the FPV drone. And here we go through this window. Both drones can make that pretty much no problem. I'm just gonna use my broken selfie camera for the conclusion because I don't wanna set my stuff back up. So what do you get? The Avata, the DJI Avata, or do you build a custom FPV drone? And what I would say is if you are going to pursue drones like heavily, and it is going to be a big part of what you're doing, if you are a drone company, if you are going to do some really neat stuff with drones, you have to learn to fly FPV. You've gotta get skilled, you've gotta know your stuff. This, I can switch out the GoPro when the new one comes out in a few months. I can change out batteries. I can put more powerful motors in. I can upgrade this. If I know how to fly this, I can get a 5-inch with 5-inch props, and I can fly a bigger camera. I can get a 7-inch prop. I can get an octocopter, and then I can fly a cinema camera. So this is just a lot more flexible. They're just a lot harder to fly, and they take longer to learn. If you just want to supplement your work with drones, then I would get the Avata. If you're not doing it professionally, if you want to do it for fun, if you're doing photo, video, cinema stuff already, and you just want a couple shots here and there with an indoor drone, the Avata is all you need. But if you want to fly at concerts and sporting events, and if you want to do some really cool stuff, you really need to learn the custom-built FPV route. One of my favorite drones, here it is. It's so small. It's under 250 grams. It's got the DJI Air Unit, the O3. It's got that same camera the Avata has. I can fly this over people. I can hit such small gaps with this thing. This is absolutely incredible, but it's manual. It's harder to fly. It records with this camera. I don't put a GoPro on it just because of weight. I have one a little bit bigger that will hold a naked GoPro. But I love these drones, but it's what I do every single day. I fly these all the time. So that is my thing. It just depends what you want to use it for. There's not one that's necessarily better than another. It depends on your use case. These are cheaper. They're cheaper to fix. They're just harder to fly. So let me know if you have any questions.